Doesn't give me the option to
Oh,
record.
we're live. Okay, we're gonna go on a wing and a prayer that this just will record.
I can't find the record button.
And you make fun of my
Everything's
technological skills.
changed. Everything's
I
changed.
know.
There you go. Record. Hang on. Records this computer. There. Okay.
It's
Whee!
so it's so funny that technology companies think that improving things means moving buttons around where no one can find them. But here's the good thing. When they move buttons around so you can't find them, it actually makes you think in a world that is programming us not to think. So I try to take this minor inconvenience as something that like keeps my brain from melting out of my head. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it. We can wait 1 minute, or should we just get into it?
I think go for it.
Yep, let's go for it.
Just go for it.
Okay, we're going for it, guys. Welcome to the Paratrooper and a Yogi Walk Into a Bar podcast. I just walked into this bar, and there he is, the wordsmith of the war zone, Adam. I just called you Adam, Andrew. We are literally about to close in on our 1 year anniversary of the show, and I
can't get my
called
name
you
right.
Adam. I'll get it right one of these days, Andrew Fox. Andrew is the co-host of the Brink Podcast, and he's Mr. Andrew Fox, not Adam, here on Substack and Axe.
And obviously my co-host, Shana Meyerson. You can find her on here. It's Shana Meyerson, co-host of the Unapologetically Jewish podcast, because are you even a middle-aged person having a midlife crisis if you don't have at least one podcast?
And Andrew, you have a story to share with us before we get started?
Yeah, about the craziness of online disinformation. So it's a little plug. April 15th, my next paper is coming out, which is on the psychology of disinformation. It's really cool. I normally focus on my war studies side of stuff because that's my other master's degree and my PhD, but my other master's is in psychology. So I busted that one out for the last few months with two brilliant research assistants, Ali and Noah, one in London, one in Chicago, who've done incredible work. And that's coming out 15th of April. But I wish I hadn't finished it before the Bibi is dead thing kicked off last week. Astonishing. I have people who aren't political, they're not into this stuff at all, they're just normal humans, lucky things, texting me going, hey, is it true Bibi's dead? Like, genuinely, that's the reach of this weird story that got out there. And I'm really good friends with a guy called Zach Anders. He's the Tel Aviv correspondent for Newsmax in the US, one of the big news channels. Zach's a really good buddy. We go drinking in Tel Aviv every time I'm there. And Zach went to Bibi's first press conference live after the war started and reported on it honestly. And my God, Zach's timeline on X was just unreal. People telling him he was AI, people telling him he was making stuff up, that he was, shilling for the Jewish state, all that stuff. And this guy's like a really credible news reporter. He's been to Ukraine, he's been on the front lines, he went with Ukrainian forces into Kursk, one of the best dudes I know. And just, wow, what a ride that week was in terms of disinformation. So I just wanted to tell you that story because, my goodness, absolutely fascinating. And give a little plug for my paper. And I've got one more exciting piece of news, and that is that my next paper has been approved, and I'm going to Somaliland to go and look at all the kind of geostrategic and political implications of recognizing the state of Somaliland. So that will be coming up in the next few months. Very exciting. Anyway, those are my stories and my news. I thought I'd share it with this audience first as an exclusive.
Okay, I have 3 things to say to that. 1, thank God I could fold myself up small enough to fit in a suitcase. I can't wait to see Somaliland. Number 2, as far as the Bibi being dead rumors, let me use a new hashtag that's not the my usual funny, not funny, but FAFO. Number 3, your paper is coming out the day after our 1 year anniversary. Aww.
Exciting times.
Okay, so anyway, let's get into, not that we have anything to talk about this week, but let's try to scrape some topics up. So on Sunday, of course, Trump made this 48-hour ultimatum, which would have expired well, now, which would have made for a particularly interesting conversation, but still. So I assume everybody knows what happened. He threatened to hit Iran's power plants, the biggest ones first, which was an interesting addendum to me, if the Strait of Hormuz weren't completely opened. Okay, I don't think anyone really thought that Iran would actually open it, because control of the strait is literally their only trump card in this fight. And for anyone who doubts that Trump would follow through on his threat, well, I mean, he has a pretty on schedule record when it comes to threats on Iran. So this led us to yesterday. God, again, it seems like 5 years ago, but President Trump backtracked, saying he's in very good talks with Iran. First of all, there's no such thing as very good talks with Iran, so let's leave that at that. And that he's going to hold off until Friday, until these attacks will potentially occur, and that the war may end by the end of the week. It's hard to say this stuff without giggling. Okay, everyone has gone nuts over this. Iran has summarily denied any such negotiations. And who would Trump be negotiating with anyway? I'm not saying that as a joke. I mean, seriously, there's no one on top but maybe a piece of cardboard. And right now, like, the whole world is like, it just seems to me a ball of confusion. So yes, it's possible that Trump's using this as a convenient excuse to go back on a threat that, upon further consideration, may very well backfire for multiple reasons having to do with world energy markets, or it can be a manipulation tactic to push Iran to concede, or by Friday, thousands of Marines are going to have arrived. The markets will be closed, thereby cushioning any blow by fire for at least a couple of days. My guess is there are no negotiations, and if there are, Trump knows there is zero chance of Iran agreeing to one term, much less 15. And this is all just another stall tactic to bolster oil in the very, 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 very short term. I mean, it looks like prices are already spiking again this morning. That was a little bit of a weird calculation, but to possibly allay market fears. It looks like the market has not been overly volatile today, and also to get our assets in place to seize control, perhaps of Karg and perhaps of Hormuz.
Well, Donald Trump has done your legs whilst we've been online, because he's just announced that the war is won.
What?
He's just announced that the America has achieved regime change in Iran.
What?
He said, "We have really achieved change. This is a change in the regime because the leaders are different to the ones that caused all those problems. We can say we really have regime change. This war has been won. The only ones that keep it going is the fake news." So what I was going to say is,
Wait, when did this happen?
about 12 minutes ago, Iran agrees to never having a nuclear weapon. Apparently, they've agreed to that. Tehran is apparently talking sense. So yeah, that's the last 12 minutes. So as I was going to go on to say, Trump is desperate for an off-ramp. He's obviously found one, and I can expect this coming to a close pretty soon, I would say.
Okay.
Shana Meyerson speechless, everyone. It's a first. This is amazing. Treasure this moment.
I think I've told you my favorite comment that ever came in on my YouTube, and it came in about 20 years ago or whatever. I still remember it, was somebody said, the yada yada is super strong on this one. Yeah, okay. So it's hard for me to process information quite this quickly, but we do know that Trump says a lot to confuse the narrative. And with Trump, you always have to look at the walk, not the talk. As we mentioned before, I mean, before the war, it would be weird for him to be mobilizing so many assets, the aircraft carriers, all the things, the strike groups, without any intention to do anything with it. Just this morning, we also heard that thousands of troops are on their way. So sometimes first of all, who's they? Who agreed to it? Okay, because there's no one at the top. No one knows who this new Ayatollah, if he's alive, if he has legs, if he's in Moscow, if he's in a coma, or if he's just whatever, walking around Tehran. I don't know. So who did he make this agreement with? Do they have the power to actually agree with this? Did we suddenly stop the bombing? What is Israel's response to this? I mean, this is a bombshell, right? And also, Andrew, I'm thinking about like this tactic where in the flattery tactic that people use sometimes, where I say to you, Andrew, in front of a big group, like say the world, Andrew, it's amazing that you decided to give $1 million to all the tireless work that I have been putting into my podcast. And then everybody starts clapping and you're like, yeah, I'm giving you $1 million. So I think that there is some of this manipulation going on. We definitely have not won the war, and it's definitely not over.
Convinced. No, look, I think that this was descending into a horrible quagmire of a disaster. And I think the Iranian tactic of going for petrol prices is absolutely the right one from their perspective and is working, I think, is the bottom line. I mean, if we just review, some of the statistics. I mean, we've had where's my notes? Yeah, 40 energy assets across 9 countries have been severely damaged. Global oil supply has fallen 11 million barrels a day. The crisis currently exceeds both 1970s shocks combined. No country is immune, not even America. Fertilizers are disrupted. Helium flow has been disrupted. I mean, look, Qatar produces, I think it's a third of the world's helium. You cannot make microchips without helium. Taiwan's economy will be threatened. iPhone costs and all that sort of thing are going to go through the roof. Like every aspect of people's cost of living is going to be severely damaged by this war already for months to come, like possibly for the rest of the year. Financially, economically, this war is a complete disaster in every way. And Trump has the midterms coming up. And so Iran has him in some ways over an oil barrel. Just what I did there. Thought you like that.
I see what you did there.
On top of that, if you look at the military options, they're very limited. Yeah, you can stick Marines on islands and all that sorts of stuff, but it doesn't guarantee you anything. And it puts American servicemen very much more into harm's way than they would have been. Also, if you do that, what does Iran then do? Do they then start deliberately targeting even more of these global energy infrastructure sites around the Gulf? Probably yes. Will they score some hits? Guaranteed yes. And so what you're doing by putting boots on the ground is you are massively escalating. And the trouble with escalation is that you can lose control over it. And we've seen that already. And I think if you compare this war to the 12-day war, you can see the dangers of escalation, because 12-day war, very neat, very contained, very effective indeed. Did it achieve conclusive strategic outcomes? No. Did it achieve many, many operational goals? Yes. Was it tactically hugely successful? Yes. This war, they've escalated the level, breadth, and depth of strikes. And as a result, Iran have responded a lot harder. And now you're on that escalatory pathway, which is very, very hard to get off. And I think all the rhetoric coming out of the White House for the last week indicates a desperation to get out of this war. And so the fact that Trump is claiming, I mean, it might not even be true. As you say, who are you talking to? He might have talked to no one, but Trump's going to say, oh, yeah, I talked to them. They agreed to all this stuff. Everything's good now on. That is a very Trumpy thing to do, especially when things are going as disastrously badly as they currently are in this war. So that's my take. I think Trump is shaping the information environment for what is probably going to be a fairly humiliating come down, given his initial claims. I mean, look, he wanted regime change. Now he's saying, oh yeah, we've achieved regime change because we killed everyone. Obviously, that's not regime change, but it's Trump trying to shape his way to a victorious exit. So this is going pretty much exactly as I predicted on our show last week, quite frankly.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, so first of all, I think that when it comes to the midterms, we discussed this last time. I think that he has a lot more to lose by not winning at this point than leaving with his tail between his legs. Second,
Oh, he'll claim a win, though. He'll claim he's won.
It doesn't matter what he claims. Voters are going to vote on what they believe. And right now, he has 100% of the MAGA base and like 90% of the Republicans, 50% of the independents, and 15% of the Democrats. So that is what he stands to lose. And this is something we need to keep in mind. Also, midterms are 6 months away. I didn't do the math. It's about 6 months away, whatever, November. So we have time to win this war as long as we have the resources. A few other things. As far as the helium is concerned, thank God you and I both got our iPhone 17 Pros before the war. So way to go on that. But no, all joking aside, here's the thing, Andrew. You know that war sucks. War is painful. And you know what? When you look at what Israel and the Gulf are absorbing in this war, the actual losses of infrastructure, of buildings, of life, I think that whatever we're losing in our pocketbooks is a tiny, small price to pay. And we need to get out of our own egos and understand
But you're an Israel obsessive. Most people aren't going to see it that way. The vast majority of people are not going to see it that way. They're going to go, I can't afford to fill up my car with fuel because Israel and America started a war with Iran.
It's not just, but it's not just Israel. It's also the Gulf states who, by the way, are pushing Trump to continue with this war until it is won, until regime change, according to them, according to the Saudis. Okay, but this is not.
States are actually asking for.
This is not just about Israel, and I am Israel obsessed, but I also know that humans are humans, and we should care because they're humans. But the other thing is, when you say that we're losing control, I mean, war is chaos, Andrew. Again, like wars in history have taken years, not weeks, to win. We need to be patient. We need to allow ourselves and allow our governments to win this stuff. The pressure that we're putting on our military to complete these massive aims within weeks, I think is completely ridiculous. And everybody now is so reactive to every single thing. We're so painted into our corners. We're so entrenched. We just, everything is like instant, instant, instant. We need to go back to the fact that when we have an objective in life, hard work is how we achieve it.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you're dragging the rest of the world into it. And look, this is not our problem, quite frankly. Iran are a nuisance for us. They're not a major security threat, and you are crashing the global economy with this war. And actually, how many wars in the past have literally crashed the global economy within 3 weeks? I can't think of one.
That's because everything works at hyperspeed these days. I mean, that's the nature of the world.
It's nothing to do with that. It's to do with oil flows and economics. And there's even the risk that you might lose the dollar as the reserve currency, because Iran at the moment is saying, yeah, you can pass ships through Hormuz if you pay in yen, which is the Chinese currency for those who aren't tracking. Okay, and the fact that the dollar is the global economic oil currency is a really big deal. If that starts to slip away, like this is the damage this war is doing is incalculable compared to the threat that Iran actually poses to anyone but Israel. And that's part of the problem is it's going to be sold and spun. I mean, my God, Israel's already in the pits. Like, if you crash the global economy for Israel, this is going to be catastrophic for Israel. And people are already angry. I mean, look at the UK poll that came out today. Did you see that?
We discuss this every week, and I actually don't even.
You're like, well, it's fine. Everyone always hates Israel, but
it's
not like this.
It's not that it's fine. It's that there's nothing that can be done about it. Israel gets blamed for everything. This is not just Israel's fight. This nuclear threat is a threat to everybody. And if you look at what happened at Diego Garcia, we now know that despite what Iran has claimed about having missiles that have about a 2,000 kilometer range, it shows that they have a 4,000 to 4,500 kilometer range.
No, nonsense. They don't.
Why is that nonsense?
Those missiles they got nowhere near Diego Garcia. We've got absolutely nobody's word that missile was even fired. And the British government have openly denied that it was a threat to Diego Garcia. So there's something very, very suspect. And the timing particularly is very suspect as well. So I think that Diego Garcia stuff was nonsense. Would be my opinion.
Who benefits from that? You think America made that up?
Yeah, I think they're desperately trying to drag Europe in.
I think that this is a global threat. We're talking about the most psychotic country that also happens to be the #1 state sponsor of terror, that whether they have nukes today or next week or next year or next month or whatever in 5 years presents a tremendous threat to the world. And if we have the opportunity to rip off the Band-Aid now, it's something we absolutely need to do, not for Israel, not just for America, but for the whole world.
No, I don't buy that. I don't buy that because look, the only reason they're firing missiles now is because they were attacked. They're far cleverer than that. And this is something that we need to deal with cleverly. And look, for what Israel and America want to achieve, they've got everything they need. They literally don't need Europe's involvement at all. I think they're trying to drag them in out of desperation to try and open Hormuz. And our governments have rightly said, no, don't be ridiculous. So, I'm not in favour of this war not continuing. I think the achievable military goals have already been achieved. And now is absolutely the time for an off-ramp before we send the global economy off a cliff.
What government is saying that the Hormuz situation is ridiculous? Last I heard, 22 countries were coming to help, and I read just this morning that it's the British Navy that's going to lead that coalition after all. And I have to say that
Yeah,
opening
that'll
up
be
this,
after the bombs have stopped falling. We're not sending ships while it's happening.
well, I'm sorry, I just don't believe that, like him, hate him. I know you hate him. I have to say this every single time that I say Trump. But the fact is, I don't think he's that stupid. He's not going to trade our war aims just to return to what was already the status quo in the
Yeah,
Strait. That's not a win.
he will, and it's not a win. You're right, and he won't get a win because the Iranians are clever and they had a plan, and it's worked really, really well. And we don't like it. Nobody likes it. I wish the regime had been wiped out and the people had been able to rise up and overthrow the Tehran government, and Pahlavi had come in on a golden horse and taken the place over. But bottom line is this war has been catastrophically mismanaged at the American end. How you start a war with Iran like this and don't secure Hormuz first, I still cannot get my head around. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. And every bit of reporting I've seen, and actually I've spoken to someone on the inside of the White House and had this confirmed. They genuinely thought this war would be over in days once they decapitated the regime. They genuinely thought that, and so they didn't think they'd need to worry about Hormuz. And I think this is what happens when you purge your army of generals that will say no to you, because that's what's been happening in America for the last year. Really good, decent people who've served their country for decades in uniform have been purged by the Trump administration because they were woke or some shite like that. And now you have a situation where they will not say no to the president, which is where you get stupid strategy like this. And you end up with Iran effectively ending the war in control of global oil and with the ability to crash the global economy. This war is a catastrophe for the world. And the stupid thing is, and the challenging thing is, you're partly right. Like Iran is a horrible, horrible threat, and their missile production factories did need to be destroyed. But having gone so far beyond containing them and trying to overthrow them has been a strategic miscalculation that will, frankly, echo through the months coming and be taught as a catastrophe at war colleges all around the world.
I think that we're premature in supposing that the war is actually going to end right now. Let's see what happens, because again, Trump says a lot of things, but also I think that we can't discount Israel in this equation. Remember that Trump actually said yesterday that Israel is going to be very, very happy with the terms of the deal. Now he's already said, he wants complete surrender or unconditional surrender, whatever his words are. He has these 15 points. If it's true, Andrew, if it's true, what he's saying, that Iran is agreeing to never have nuclear weapons, man, I am all for it. But there's also the ballistic weapons and also the proxies to contend with. So if it's possible that Donald Trump somehow did find that guy in charge who did agree, then I'm all with it. But also, Netanyahu keeps alluding to the fact that Israel still has some tricks up their sleeves. I mean, I don't know why we're not just rolling up our sleeves in unleashing, but what I heard is that Israel is literally calling on their cell phones lower level IRGC leaders, telling them, we know where you are, this is where your family is, this is where your children are, this is where your assets are, asserting that Israeli intelligence has targets on their backs, encouraging them to defect. And I'm hearing, again, I obviously I can't confirm nor deny reports of mass defections, but let's not underestimate the fact that Israel has access to their phones. We saw something like this in Lebanon. Who knows? Maybe there's something, a real surprise, maybe on the horizon.
Well, there you go. Well, apparently, there you go. This is a story I saw just before I came online. Two sources tell Axios that Netanyahu is concerned Trump might strike a deal that falls well short of Israel's objectives, includes significant concessions, and limits Israel's ability to conduct future strikes against Iran. So, yeah, all the mood music here, I think, is going one way. So who knows? That surprise might change the course of the war. But
And
yeah.
I'm going to assume that that came from Barak Ravid. And my mood music about Axios and Barak Ravid is ignore everything he says. He's always wrong and always trying to create rifts between Trump and Netanyahu where they don't exist. This is an ongoing thing. It happens every time. This is what he loves to talk about, daylight, whether it exists or not. And it turns out it usually doesn't.
Yeah, there's some fantastic chat going on in the chat box. I've been on the Zoom screen, so we've got two screens. I've got the Zoom screen,
yeah,
which is the live one that I'm seeing, and then I've also got my Substack open, which is like got a bit of a lag.
Yeah, I can see it too.
So
Yeah,
if I switch onto that, so it's all very feisty on this one. It's great fun.
yeah.
But yeah, no, the UK economy was nowhere near as bad as this until this war started. It's been genuinely catastrophic. I can see my friend Marie. She's going in there. I'm fully on board with her.
Go ahead and ignore that next one that says Shana is correct.
This time around. No, it's just the same Yaron who thought that the UK economy was already this bad. No, unfortunately, Rachel Reeves, you're right. It was terrible, but now it's even worse thanks to this war. But yeah,
war makes economies terrible, Andrew. Wars
not
do
like
that.
this. This is next level. No, we never had a global economic collapse because of the war in Afghanistan.
World War II
This
was
isn't a world war. This isn't a world war. It's one tiny state in the Middle East bombing Iran with America.
No,
this is not a world war.
We've discussed this as well. It's a world war because everybody is involved and everybody's going to get more involved. And Iran is and was a threat to the whole world. They have proxies all over the world. They have them. They have bombed and killed. They've killed thousands of Americans. They've killed nationals from just about every country. It's ridiculous and deflective to say that this is just an Israeli problem. It's absolutely not. But even if it is, Andrew, I'm sorry. Even if it is, Israeli intelligence and military tech saves lives in all of these countries every single day. Israel is the only true Western ally in the Middle East. And they serve a tremendous function in the world economy, in the world's intelligence, in the world's tech, and they do deserve defending.
Yeah,
They're
look, I know all of this.
No. They're a tiny little country, and we can't.
But there's no sense going to a war with a strategy that destroys the world economy and is going to make Israel even more isolated because people are angry and resentful towards them. Partly because blundering Trump has taken already an amplification of that feeling and has put steroids into it to make it even bigger than it is. And look, I mean, I reckon most of the polls in Europe on this war aren't actually because of Israel. I think they're mainly because of Trump. And yeah, this war is a catastrophe. And look, if it had just been destroying the direct threat to Israel, fully here for it. But the way they have escalated their strategy beyond what was reasonably practically achievable by military force was the grossest stupidity. And it is going to backfire for months to come.
I think that you are using some hyperbolic
No,
rhetoric
it's
here.
genuinely
This
that
is not,
disastrous.
it's not that disastrous. We
It
have
is that
taken
disastrous.
out 3 levels of their leadership, first
And it
of all.
hasn't
We
won the
have
war.
taken out 90% of their military, and I mean, of their, sorry, not their military, their munitions, and their capability to build more munitions. The last, I mean, real piece that we have is to remove the highly enriched uranium. But we absolutely have had massive wins here, and
And look,
it has.
we never lost a firefight in Afghanistan. Not one. We never lost a single force-on-force scrap in the whole entirety of 20 years in Afghanistan. And look who is running Afghanistan now. Strategy is everything. And if you don't, so there's a great saying. It's Sun Tzu, and it's tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. And that is exactly what we're seeing here. Um, and if only the White House had read Sun Tzu's famous book, The Art of, what was it? Specialized limited operations. No, it's The Art of
Is
War.
that what the Sun Tzu book? I think
No, it's
isn't it called The Art of War or
it's the art
something?
of war. Yes, it's just Mr. Trump called this a specialized limited operation or something similar, didn't he? And if only they had actually got someone in the White House who had read anything about strategy, then perhaps this wouldn't be the catastrophe that it is. But this is genuinely going to hurt the world for months to come. And it
Okay,
really, and it just, and this is what frustrates me is it just didn't need to happen because literally every analyst or military college graduate on the planet would tell you when attacking Iran, you need to take account of Hormuz first. Like this is
okay.
just basics. And now they're stuck. They don't know how to get it back open again. So they're going to have to give the Iranians a deal. And the Iranians now know that they can get whatever they want if they threaten to shut Hormuz again, because they don't care that they've had their missile stocks wiped out. They don't care they've had their leadership wiped out because they are religious lunatics who will keep rebuilding. And there's no way to remove them decisively under the current
20,
circumstances.
22 nations plus America and Israel say that the strait is going to be resecured and opened. But
Yeah,
I
eventually, but
also,
there's still no way to do
in,
it. Like
no,
those 22 nations are not putting a ship near that strait until there is some kind of ceasefire deal.
there's
Not a
not
chance.
no, but there's nothing that has no way to do anything. Everything in the world has a way to do it.
No,
So,
they don't.
so
It's the utility of force. Look, this is literally what so I not only my master's in war studies, I looked at strategy in the Middle East, but very specifically, I looked at the utility of force, i.e., when someone is pushing a button to fire a missile or a rifleman is on the ground pulling the trigger, how is there a direct line from what they're doing on the ground through to the politicians' goals when they started the war and sent them into combat? And the
mhm.
utility of force here does not align. The ways and means are not aligned. Regime change is not going to happen through what they're doing. The Straits of Hormuz are not going to be reopened through what they're doing. And if they change plan and they start dumping troops on the ground, they might get Hormuz reopened, but it's still going to be way too late for the global economy because it's going to take months to clear that strait by force. And yet this is just a catastrophe. They've made such a weapons grade mess of this. Like we could spend the rest of the thing talking about all the different ways this is a fuck up, and it actually doesn't matter how many missile launches they've taken out, other than the fact that does make Israel safer in the long term, which is objectively a good thing, and I agree with you. But the rest of the strategy of this war is a shit show.
Iran has said out loud that they want to take over the world, but definitely to destroy Israel and destroy America. So taking this out is a much bigger accomplishment than perhaps you're giving them credit for. Also, as far as the yoga of war, the art of war.
Hey, there's your book. There's your book.
Yeah, I'm the queen of the malapropism today. No, maybe he hasn't read the Art of War, but he did write The Art of the Deal, and I don't think he's going to bend over forward for the Iranians. I don't have my master's in military anything. I have it in yoga. No, but
Which
honestly
is why you'll
speaking.
live much longer than me and be more healthy.
Honestly, though, my
Who's the
understanding.
real winner here? It's always you, isn't it?
That's right, always me.
You'll be a
Um,
little old Jewish lady pottering around Los Angeles, remembering me many
on
years
my
later.
hands,
Oh
yeah.
God.
But here's my understanding of the art of war. war is applying military force until surrender, and war serves a purpose. We can't just give up because it's long and hard. That's how I understand war. And as I've said before, you can't apply any rules of war that have happened in past wars to Israel, because everything having to do with Israel breaks every convention. Keep in mind the very fact that the ideological attachments of the Gulf states, who are basically lying down and saying, yeah, thank you, sir, give me another, because they do not want to be seen as fighting on the same side of Israel. Again, this kind of stuff defies all rationality. The rules of war, the rules of war just don't apply the same way as military theory does in other wars. Everything changes when Israel enters the equation.
Israel hasn't won a war since 1976.
I'll argue they haven't lost a war since 1976.
They haven't won one either.
That's because the world won't let them.
Do you not see an inherent contradiction in your last couple of statements?
Why? Because now this isn't just Israel's war. This is America's war, and Israel is fighting with
When was the last time America won a war?
as a partner. Again,
91,
as I've said in the past, we are allergic to war. And if we are allergic to war, which is a feature of a sad, tragic feature of humanity, then we can't win. We need to be willing at this time, the most dangerous time in history, we need to be willing to put in troops. That's why troops exist. To say we have the most powerful military on earth, but God forbid we should ever use them. These people, as you confirmed, when you are a soldier, you sign up to go to war, not to sit behind some presidential political hopes and not be able to do what you signed up to do, which is to defend the nation, to defend our liberties, and to defend the free world.
Right, let me give you the academics' take on this. So war is an extension of politics. You go to war to achieve a political aim, and victory and defeat is not hugely helpful in 2026 because wars now look very different. And we, I think, have to reframe this idea that wars need to be won or lost, because it's far more nuanced and complicated than that, because the political aim of wars is now very seldom to overrun another state and take their territory, as it was when these theories were formulated. And I think we have to get used to the idea of unending wars, because we're fighting enemies who don't know that they're defeated, as we saw in Gaza. As I told you, for a year before the ceasefire, Hamas were always going to be there once the bombs stopped falling, because they don't know how to lose. And we have to reframe our concepts of victory and defeat to encompass enemies who cannot be forced to surrender on the battlefield, like 1945, where you've got, you know, Lüneburg Heath and the German field marshals turning up and signing over. I think it was an admiral, actually, wasn't it, if I remember rightly? But yeah, signing surrender documents like that. Those days are gone. We don't fight those wars anymore. So that idea is outdated for 2026. War is only one of three levers of statecraft. There's three levers, maybe four in 2026. War is the first one. Economics is the second one. Diplomacy is the third one. And I would contend that information is now the fourth. And we're seeing real strategic effects from information in a way that we never really did before, thanks to the internet. So what you have to do, I think, when you're trying to define what success looks like, and I'm not saying victory, I'm saying success for a reason, is do you have strategic goals set by politicians that can be realistically achieved by the use of force? And when you have achieved those conditions, you have achieved victory in a 2026 concept. And what we've got here in Iran is a bunch of political goals that were not achievable by military force. And the economic and diplomatic levers were discarded far too early. And if you're going to try and contain Iran, you need to start thinking slightly more holistically in those four levers, because you cannot get rid of the regime by force. So what are you going to do about it? And that's the question that really hasn't been answered at any point in the last 3.5 weeks, is if the regime doesn't fall, what do you do? And now Trump is having to make it up as he goes along, because he hadn't given prior consideration to that problem before he started dropping bombs on Tehran. And that's why this war is going as sideways as it is. Lecture finished.
Thank you for that lecture. You started, I love your lectures. I learn from you just like everybody, and then I fight back. Okay, so here's the thing. Andrew, you just started that entire conversation saying that wars don't need to be won or lost. And then 5 minutes ago, you said that Israel has not won a war since 76 and America hasn't won one since whatever you said.
Exactly, because it's not a useful framing anymore.
Okay, but it's still the argument that you're making. So let's toss that. Well, you just did. You
Well, no, I
just did,
didn't.
Andrew. You said that Israel has not won a war, and neither has America in so many years. So we need to reframe that. You also said that we're not discussing territorial aspirations the way that we have in past wars. I'm going to go ahead and also argue that Iran has huge territorial aspirations, that they have been, in essence, buying off these proxies that are more or less owning these whatever country that they're able to. Yes, we're seeing the proxies falling, but the Islamist regime, the whole thing, their whole goal, if we want to talk about territorial aspirations, is to take over the world. To me, those are pretty big and substantial aspirations that we should all be worrying about.
Well, no, because look, a risk is an intent, an opportunity, and a capability. And they can have all the intent in the world to take over the world, but they don't have the opportunity and they don't have the capability. So that doesn't, I could say that my intent is to be a billionaire, but it's never going to happen. Because frankly, I'm lazy. And secondly, I don't have an idea that's going to earn me $1 billion. So yeah, they can do what they can have all the ambitions they want to, but it doesn't mean it's a realistic threat.
Hey guys, I need to ask that if you're going to write comments, keep them constructive and keep them kind. Okay,
So
we don't want to have to.
That guy's tossed. Don't worry.
We don't have to, but I don't want to have to turn off comments. So let's try to keep it productive. Also, I'm sorry that we can't address everything that's coming in. Thank you for so much interaction. We definitely appreciate it. I know we're both sort of keeping our eyes on it, but also sort of trying to hear what the other person is saying, so that we could continue this conversation. Okay, Andrew, can we call a truce on this one? Can
Yeah,
we sign
sure.
that piece of paper? Okay, let's move on. I want to talk about something that that is very concerning for me, and that has to do with hits, the missile hits in Israel. The IDF has said that 90% of all Iranian missiles fired at Israel have been intercepted. Now, I don't doubt that. The problem is that we're talking about every missile for the last 3 weeks. And that means that in the beginning, I think we had a lot higher rate of interception, perhaps, than we're seeing now, particularly because of all these cluster ammunitions, which, by the way, are highly illegal, which, by the way, the UN doesn't seem to care about, because Israel. Somebody asked why is war with Israel different than any other war? It's because whenever there's Israel, everybody is going to turn in another direction. Look at how the UN, the United Nations, this is the body that represents the United Nations of the world, and see the double standards with which they deal with Israel versus everybody else. Also, the fact that Israel has been fighting a war on terror in the world has, for the most part, turned on them, the victim. So I'm just going to use that as a frame, but that's not really where I was going. I was just addressing something that came in, because if I'm making a statement, I want to at least sort of substantiate it on some level. But here's what's worrying me about the interceptions. The Iranian missiles, it's weird to me. We keep hearing that it's been degraded by 90%, and that number doesn't seem to move. Like for like a week or two, they keep saying 90%, like I'm waiting for the 91 or the 92. But even as their barrages are getting smaller and smaller, to me, it does seem like the hit rate, if that's a thing, hit rate, is that a thing?
Yes, strike rate, impact
Strike
rate.
rate. Well, okay, is escalating, right? It seems to me, it could be wrong, that it's getting higher and higher. So, I mean, we know that these cluster munitions have a lot less capacity to cause real damage. I mean, they could kill someone, but if you're in your safe room, in your mamad, you're basically going to be safe. So there's that. They're also very expensive to destroy. It takes a lot of resources when one bomb turns into 20 going hither and nigh, right? I'm watching this. My fear is, as you've mentioned many times, Iran is learning from the real-time warfare and adjusting accordingly. And also, as they're saying, and you may disagree with me, but I trust what they say less than I trust what Trump says. They are saying that they're, sort of saving their best and newest, most technologically advanced weaponry for the latter part of what they see as a war of attrition, right? Because, as you've said many, many times, all they need to do is survive. So I also worry if something's going on at Pickaxe or maybe even at one of these other far, far, far under a mountain, hidden laboratories. They are rushing, as they were before this war, to make a bomb that maybe, God forbid, that is the big surprise that they have coming, is a technologically advanced warhead with nuclear, even if it's not fully enriched material within it.
Yeah, I mean, again, the enemy always gets a vote. I don't know. I wonder if they'd have used it by now if they had it. I do wonder.
Do you?
Anyway, yeah. I mean, what have you got to lose when you've got your backed into a corner and your enemy saying they want regime change and they've killed all your leaders? I think maybe that's the point. Hit the button.
Andrew, we're talking in circles here. If they think they're going to survive, then they're not going to make that last ditch effort. If they make this last ditch effort, they know that it is the end. The end. One nuclear bomb, it is the end for Iran. So I think that they would only use this as, when I say last ditch, I mean literally like we are in the ditch and this is where it all ends. Press the button, hold our breath, close our eyes, and say goodbye. I'm thinking about that movie with Don't Look Up. Is that what it was called?
Oh God, I hated that. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Oh my God, I love that movie. I thought it was so clever.
They were like, oh no, nuclear missiles are flying. Let's have a deep, meaningful conversation.
Oh my God, it was so funny. It was satire, Andrew. It was so good. Did anybody else?
Maybe we're not. Maybe I'm thinking of a different. Maybe I'm thinking of a different film. The one I watched was very, very serious. It wasn't satire at all.
Oh, it's 100% satire with the Elon Musk guy who's like, it's okay. Give me $3 trillion and it's okay if the world blows up. It was a Netflix thing. It might not have been.
Maybe I'm thinking of a different movie. I don't know. Sorry, my bad. I'm not good with movies.
Oh, it was about a meteor. And it is good. You would like it.
Oh no, that's a different film. I was thinking of the one about the nuclear missiles that got fired, or whatever. That was cool.
No.
By the lady who directed The Hurt Locker.
Yeah. No.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, the missile strikes though. I mean, there was that really, a ballistic got through yesterday. Was it today or yesterday? I saw that. There was a big crater.
Which one? In Dimona, Arad?
Yeah, well, it was an actual, I'm not sure, I only saw the photos. It was an actual ballistic got through. It wasn't a cluster.
That was Sunday,
it might have been Dimona, I think. Yeah. But yeah, awful. But you know, it's the thought struck me. It's interesting that Ukrainians and Israelis aren't closer on this war. I find it very strange because, like, Israel's been going through this for 3 weeks. Ukraine's been going for it for 4 years, and they don't have an Iron Dome. It's just really interesting to me that Ukraine and Israel haven't managed to find a particularly effective middle ground. I know because of history and politics and all that sort of stuff. But I did think it was particularly disgusting of Bibi this week to endorse Orban. It was another, just when Bibi can't get much lower, he finds a way. And yeah, endorsing the pro-Putin Orban because he said something nice about Israel once, in spite of his long history of anti-Semitic commentary, is just, I'm guessing it's currying favor with Trump. But yeah, I don't think Bibi is thinking strategically at all. He's thinking about Bibi as always. I spoke to a politician in Israel who's known Bibi for a very long time. And he said when Bibi went into politics, he was 98% for Israel and 2% for Bibi. And now I don't think he's even 2% for Israel, which I thought was a really interesting comment. But yeah, and I won't say which politician that was, but they're pretty senior. So yeah, again, that missile threat, horrible. And the lesson today, and look, even in Ukraine, the drones are still getting through. They are the #1 in the world at drone defenses. And I don't know if you saw, but just today, the main church in Lviv got hit, which I'm particularly moved by because I've been there and seen it myself. It was a beautiful building, and now it's on fire. And that's even with the best drone defenses in the world. And so the really big lesson is that Europe and America particularly, I think, need to get a grip of this and make sure that drone defenses are the #1 defense priority going forward, because we ain't ready for that. As the Gulf states are proving right now, the Iranian drones are getting through, and they're not as sophisticated as the Russian ones. They're the same base model, but the Russians have hugely improved.
You know what I also heard today, Andrew?
Go on.
That Ukraine hit Russia's primary oil infrastructure today. Did you read that? So
something's on fire. Yeah, something's on fire.
Yeah, I mean, apparently two. I don't know if they were refineries or what the thing was, but so now maybe we can't blame all the oil crisis on Israel.
No, because Russian oil is not on the main global market anyway.
Neither is Iranian.
No, but it's not Iranian oil that's coming out. It's the stuff from Iraq and Bahrain and Qatar that can't get out. That's the one that's causing the crisis. It's not the Iranian oil.
Yeah,
so
well,
that doesn't quite apply.
I have another. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's all I had to say.
Yeah, so I guess that another thing that's bothering me a lot is this. Maybe you've heard this, maybe you could corroborate, maybe you can't, I don't know, that Iran is messaging that they're going to be ending, no, for real, they're going to be ending their attacks on the Gulf states and aiming the rest of what they have left entirely at Israel. Have you heard this?
No, I saw they managed to hit Beirut today, which is a damn good effort on the Iranians' part. Yeah, strong work.
I mean, it's sort of laughable, but at the same time, we're talking about a tiny, tiny country next to another tiny country. It does seem that for all these missiles traveling thousands of miles, that an errant missile, I doubt that was on purpose, although they're saying that maybe it was aimed at the U.S. Embassy, which would make more sense that they're hitting U.S. assets, which they've said all along that they will. But if they unload everything that they have left on Israel, I mean, this is the doomsday scenario that we thought we were going to have originally, right? Nobody suspected all these attacks, way more attacks on the Gulf states than Israel, which is such a weird strategy in and of itself to bombard.
No, I think there's a logic. There's a logic to it. I don't think it was a very good logic, but I see the logic. And that was, we can disrupt the global economy and we can maybe get the Gulf states to pressure Washington to stop.
Right, but
it didn't work, but I understand their thinking.
It didn't work, but then they went harder. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, that was a calculated risk rather than just taking everything and shooting it at the little Satan itself. I mean, personally, I love Israel. I'm very happy that Israel didn't have to sustain everything. But if Iran really does, because they've said this before, but really does start to unleash every single thing that they have on Israel, and with the rumors, which Israel denies, and I am more likely to personally believe Israel than rumors that fly against Israel. But the rumors are that Israel may be running low on interceptors. We've talked about this. plus that we're seeing more and more damaging hits. I mean, this could be really, really devastating for Israel. I think that not everybody understands just how small Israel is. And when I hear about all of these hits on Tel Aviv, you could walk end to end Tel Aviv, the long end, in an hour from top to bottom along the coast, right? If you went
I've
side
done
to
it.
side,
You
I
can.
mean,
I can testify that you're correct because I've actually done it.
I've done it many times. You know, you just walk to Jaffa. It's just not a thing. So people don't understand, if you hear about 10 hits or whatever, you're talking about in like a very, very, very small radius. But here's what's, I guess, irking me. So the Gulf has sustained all of these hits with basically no response other than a few minor diplomatic responses. One major one today having to do with Lebanon, which we could talk about. But should the attacks end on the Gulf states, do you think that they're just going to acquiesce, let bygones be bygones? That's the end of it. Let's be friends with Iran again. We'll together control the Strait of Hormuz. We'll get the oil and everybody wins. Are they going to, after everything that Israel has done, are they going to just be like, oh, okay, well, whatever, Israel, as the rest of the world is saying?
I think the Gulf states will do whatever gives them the most stability and makes them the most rich. That's generally how they operate. They have an astonishing capacity to play both sides, if not three sides at once. They'll do whatever they need to do to get stability and get the oil money coming in again. That's just the way the Gulf states. I don't care if it's UAE, Qatar, Dubai, Doha, whatever. You know, it's yeah, they all play the same game to a different extent or another. So yeah,
When you say they'll do whatever they need to do to earn their money, they have not been willing so far in 3 weeks to join a war that involves being on the same side as Israel
well,
because of
that's mainly
their
because
ideological
that's
trapping.
well, that's mainly because there's no point. As I've said with European involvement, there's nothing they could add to the war effort that's going to make anything decisively different. And frankly, I've served alongside soldiers from some of those countries, and I wouldn't want them anywhere near me if I were an American pilot, quite frankly. And well, we saw what happened with the Kuwaiti pilot, who's 3 out of 5 on his way to becoming an ace, with those 3 American F-15s that he shot down in one go. I genuinely want to know what's happening to that guy. I just want to see what his annual report looks like this year.
Oh my gosh.
Going to make fun reading, I suspect. But yeah, you don't want them joining in. Believe me. Yeah, we
They
had
shouldn't.
UAE Special Operations Forces with us when I was with the Green Berets, and they were a curious bunch. Oh, do you want a story? Do you want a story about the UAE SOF? This is
I
brilliant.
want a
We were in
story.
a
Can I
place
get
called
my blankie?
yeah, do it. Pull up a sandbag and take a seat. So we were in a place called Forward Operating Base Robinson, which is up in the Sangin Valley, which is one of the nastiest places in Afghanistan at the time. But we were doing strike operations. We were flying in at night, kicking in doors and capturing people, or if they resisted, other stuff to them. And we had a detachment of the UAE up there, and I got this phone call at like 3 o'clock in the morning, like you need to get out. There's been the mortar alarms are going off. We need investigations of what's happening right now. The UAE SOF is saying that they've just been under mortar fire. We've not had, our radars haven't flagged up any mortar fire. We've not heard any incoming rounds on, like the whole brigade was panicking because the UAE had called in mortars and nobody had any idea where they came from. I was getting phone calls from the artillery saying, "Hey, do we need to move our mortar locating radars? This is a really big deal." And we went down there and we found about 6 really tiny holes in the ground, and we were like, "What on earth? Like that's not a mortar round. That's way too small." And then we sort of went out round the back of the camp and we found the fly-off levers to 6 hand grenades. And what they'd done is they'd thrown hand grenades at their own camp so that they could get their combat badge for for the UAE.
Okay,
Yeah,
maybe we don't need them on our side.
yeah. That's their special forces, not their regular forces. This is not these are not troops you want weighing in on your side at any great speed, quite frankly.
Do you think that they will start to build real militaries now? Now seeing what the future might look like, Andrew, if we end this war, it will not be the last war. Okay, if we do end this war in victory, it will be the last war. Otherwise, we'll be back there in a few months or a year. I mean, we will be back before Trump leaves office. I can pretty much guarantee it. But do they have any intentions, the Gulf states, to build their militaries?
Not beyond
None.
what it is. Not beyond what it is.
Huh?
They'll focus on defensive capabilities. They'll buy a lot more Patriots. They'll give a lot of money to Ukraine, hopefully for their drone defenses. But they don't do offensive stuff.
Okay. How are you feeling about that Lebanon has declared the Iranian ambassador persona non grata, told them they have to be out by the end of the week? I do believe Lebanon is very serious, finally, about at least dismantling Hezbollah as a military force. And I mean, I guess they can't get them out of the political echelon. But to me, this sends a serious message, keeping in mind, of course, that Hezbollah is not what we would consider a proxy of the IRGC, but they actually are the IRGC. So for Lebanon to take the steps to kick Iran out, I think is a very, very consequential moment.
No, I don't agree. I think it's cosmetic. I think it's cosmetic. And they haven't expelled the ambassador. The ambassador hasn't even presented their credentials yet because they were only appointed to the role last month. And the Iranian embassy right now there is functioning perfectly normally under the charge d'affaires, in the same way that the Israeli embassy in London is, funnily enough. I saw Daniela, the charge d'affaires, last night. There's no ambassador right now. So it's the embassy continues to function. Yeah, I think it's very, very superficial, quite frankly. But I do feel desperately
Optics.
sorry. Yeah, it's optics. I just feel really sorry for Lebanon. Like what a horrible place to be in as a country, invaded by this foreign body that lives like a virus inside their society and their governance, unable to, function as a normal country. Without the threat of assassination of your politicians by Hezbollah and all this sort of stuff. I mean, it's just a really sad place for them to be in, actually. And I do feel for the ordinary Lebanese. It's just a shame about the cancer that's rotting away inside them, and there seems to be no way to cut it out, unfortunately. Yeah, no,
Sounds familiar.
I don't
It's
see a
basic.
solution. It does, yeah.
It's
Islamism.
basically mini Iran. I mean, the same shit, different day,
Yeah, and if anyone wants to know
different
about
place.
the origins of Hezbollah, I wrote a really in-depth article about it, like ages and ages ago. You can find it on my Substack. Search for Hezbollah. You can have a read of that. It was one of my better pieces, I think. Did really well at the time. It's nice to see.
Andrew, everything you write is one of your better pieces. Let's be honest.
Did you like the one this week? Just out of interest.
Yes, this week was
The
phenomenal.
Westminster one.
I do want to about the Hutzlah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I do want to talk about that. And that was I don't see that satirical writing from you very often. So well done, well done. But I do want to mention one other weird little thing when it comes to golf, and then let's talk about Hezbollah, and we can wrap this up. But one thing we have to consider, because we talk so much about the uncertainty of the future of the United States after Trump, that it could go to leftist Democrats who will be absolute pacifists, or to isolationist Republicans. And so, and also, I mean, so right now, at this moment, but I'll argue bigger than that, the U.S. has basically protected the Middle East. They have been the guardian of whatever. I don't want to say stability. I cracked up when Keir Starmer said he wants to restore stability in the Middle East. I'm like, restore? Like, how far back are we going here? Like 2,000 years, 4,000 years?
He's really not good at this, bless his heart.
Yeah. I think, you know what, Andrew? I'm starting to feel really bad for the guy for just being the prime minister at this moment. I mean, there's really nothing he could do right. He's doing nothing right, but I don't know that he has the ability to do anything right just because of the political climate. But listen, you're saying that that the Gulf states, the Middle East, like really have no interest in forming like their own real viable military. The U.S. will no longer be able to be counted on. The Europe, as far as I'm concerned, seems to have stepped out of all of this. And so the irony here is that the superpower left in the region is Israel. And that ultimately the Gulf may have to rely on Israel to be their primary protector. And this is going to require some serious rapprochement. I do think that right now, if there were some sort of threat to the Middle East after Trump, unless it's Rubio, and I am stumping for Rubio, that they could be left on their own with only Israel to defend them.
Yeah, I mean, I think I spoke earlier about the levers, and I think when it comes to that Iranian threat, they are very much inclined to use economics and diplomacy than they are military force, and that's been pretty successful for them, in fairness, until recently. But that's for very different reasons that it didn't work. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one going forward. Anyway, do you want to talk about the ambulances?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I guess why don't I'll set it up for anybody who hasn't heard. I assume everybody's heard, and then you could give your perspective because you are the Brit at the bar. In what you wrote was so very, very spot on. So for anybody who doesn't know, there was a firebombing of 4 United Hatzalah ambulances. So for anybody who doesn't know what Hatzalah is, basically, think of it like an unincorporated ambulance service or first aid service that can sometimes get there faster than the municipal. Okay, it's run by Chabad, I believe, by Jewish people, but anybody in the community can call Hatzalah if they want sort of like faster than perhaps other municipal offerings can get to them, whatever it is. Okay, so it's basically a paramedic service. So they're all over the world, wherever there's a big Jewish population. We have it here in Los Angeles. By the way, it's interesting because I know people in United Hatzalah here in LA. They're almost all Orthodox or ultra Orthodox, and they have their phones in synagogue because even on Shabbat, they will get in their car, answer their phone, and save a life because that will always take precedence. So anyway, yesterday, there was this burning of 4, I think it was 4, maybe it was more, I don't know, I heard 4,
Yeah,
Hatzalah ambulances. Was it in London? Because I know like sometimes like I'll hear, okay, because sometimes in LA, like people, I mean, in the world, they'll say, oh, this happened in LA and it happened like 2 hours away from LA, but it's LA adjacent or something. So whatever. This is honestly the work of the devil himself. So I want you to talk about the government stuff, but I just want to talk about just really briefly, as if firebombing synagogues in car ramming Jewish preschools isn't enough. Like, how can literally anyone but the world's most depraved terrorists ever justify, and people are, the deliberate destruction of life-saving ambulances, which again, though run by the Jewish community, serve the entire community at large. And the perpetrators, no surprise, are, I got to read this, a new Iranian terror group called the Islamic Movement of the Companions of the Right. I have to say, for smart people,
steady on there. We have to be slightly careful with that. This is a bit like ISIS, I suspect, where something horrible happens and then ISIS just claim it. There's no concrete evidence this is anything but a lone wolf attack right now. So I think we have to be a little bit careful on that one.
Okay, let's be a little bit careful, but there is a new Iranian terror group in Europe with a not so clever name, and that even if they're just claiming responsibility, this is a new threat that we get to look forward to, particularly in Europe. But I'd love for you to address the government's role in all of this.
Yeah, well, first of all, the government has replaced the ambulances, or said they're going to replace the ambulance, which is the right thing to do. That's good. I was at the Community Security Trust dinner last night, actually, the annual dinner in London, and the Metropolitan Police Commissioner was there. They have now put armed cops, which is really unusual for the UK, for those of you who don't know. They're increasing the armed cops response in London in those Jewish areas. So that's a good move, I think. I think we can say fair play for that. But it doesn't change the fact that this comes off the back of 2.5 years of blood libel, of anti-Semitic normalization, not only in the UK, it's everywhere across the West, certainly across Europe, certainly across America. And time again, people like me have said, this is wrong. This needs to be cracked down on by the government. There need to be measures taken that people cannot spread this stuff. Even speaking to the platforms to get a grip of it. I mean, just today, in response to this ambulance thing, it's been going around like wildfire. Like, why should the Jews have their own ambulances? Why are they special? Like, we have something called St. John's Ambulance in the UK, which has been around since the 11th century, set up by Christians for everyone. Like, there's not really a substantive difference here. It's just, yet again, because it's Jews, they're getting treated differently. So the government have made some noises, they've put some money and resources at it, but what they've done is absolutely nothing to address the core problem underneath it, and that is yet to be addressed. So very frustrating. I'm almost past being angry at this point, which is why my piece yesterday was so sardonic, because
Yeah.
I don't really see what more there is to do now at this point. Like, we've said it and said it and said it. We said it was going to happen. We said that people were going to be killed. People were killed. Nothing happened. Now some ambulances have been set on fire. Like, we said this was going to happen. Like, I spoke to some Holocaust survivors last year. I gave a speech. It was one of the coolest things I've done in a long time. A real honor to have the chance to spend some time with them. And like, they said, it was the atmosphere reminded them of 1930s Germany. And like, when it's Gary Lineker saying that, I don't listen for 10 seconds. When it's someone who actually was there in 1930s Germany and survived the Holocaust says it's like 1930s Germany, I sit up and listen. But our government won't, and it's driving me crazy. So I'm going to all I know, which is mocking them, because I don't see anything else to do at this point. If you can't find dark humor, then all is lost. So that's where I stand. Very, very sad times.
Well, I think that, Andrew, your sentiments are extremely Islamophobic, and you should probably check your biases at the door.
Yeah. I don't think I mentioned Islam once, did I? But anyway.
I'm only joking. But everything is deflecting back to, oh, this is all about Islamophobia. But I do want to say one more thing, Andrew, before we shut down the bar. So last call. I've said this before. I might have even said it before in this discussion. It's been an absolute miracle how low the Israeli fatality rate has really been in this war, particularly considering the fact that Iran and their friends in Hezbollah have been relentlessly attacking civilian targets in an attempt to kill as many people as possible. It's such a devastating irony that with fewer than 15 fatalities sustained, that Israeli farmer Ofer Moskowitz was killed this weekend in a friendly fire incident. To me, there is no pill harder to swallow. And I was wondering, Andrew, if as a veteran, you can, for a minute or two or three or however long, talk about how friendly fire, like, what conditions make it inevitable in war, how we should understand and process these losses that come not from the enemy, but from our own defenders in the chaos of war.
So what was the background to the story? I hadn't seen that one. What happened to this chap?
So they call him a famous avocado farmer. I don't know how an avocado farmer is famous, but he was basically just driving down the street. Maybe you saw the video, maybe you didn't. His car was hit by what Hezbollah claimed to be an RPG, and it just exploded into a ball of flames. And then, even though Hezbollah said that they were responsible, Israel did its own investigation and found out that it was a friendly fire incident. He was, I want to say, 70 years old.
Okay, so
Very, very, maybe 60. Very
yeah, I mean,
sad.
friendly fire is normally when you fire on your own troops, not on a. This is a tragic
Oh,
civilian accident, and it happens. Like, look, when you want to pull your trigger, you have to positively identify what you're firing at for it to be legal. You can't just spray and pray. You have to see an enemy target, identify it as a threat, and only then can you engage with the appropriate amount of force. Um, you know, we don't know the circumstances. Did he ignore warnings to stop? Did he drive into somewhere that was already where bullets were flying around and rockets were flying around? I mean, we don't know, but the war is very chaotic. There has been a habit, particularly throughout Gaza, of some of the reserve units being a bit too trigger happy. And that got me in trouble saying that before, but it's true because I've spoken to them and they've told me. Um, it could be any of these things. It could be any of these things. Until we see the report, we don't know. But it's very easy to do. War is very chaotic, and sometimes tragic and terrible mistakes do happen. And what proper armies do, and what I'm sure the IDF are doing, is looking into it, investigating it, learning the lessons from why it went wrong, and then cascading those lessons to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's,
yeah.
that it happens so seldom shows you that they are a learning army, as are we, and fingers crossed this doesn't happen again going forward.
Yeah. So I think that right now, like, we all have to just pray, whether you believe in God or don't believe in God or whatever it is that you believe in. We all want the best. If there is an end to this war, let's hope that it's done with terms that are acceptable, not just to America, not just to Israel, but to Western civilization. And I mean, there is an off ramp for every war that could end either in surrender or truce. I don't see right now that Iran is really going to agree to anything, but if they do, thank God. I don't know what else to say.
Well, it's a good note to end on. And thank you. I think this might be a record number of people. It's 179 tonight have jumped in on this. So I really appreciate everyone who gave up an hour of their time to hear Shana and I rattling away at each other. I hope you found it enjoyable. And we always try and present both sides of the debate and do it in a civilized way, and hopefully in an educational way as well. So you get to see both sides of the argument and you can pick who you agree with, and that's great. And that's exactly how it should be. And that's why we do this every week. So please do like, subscribe, hit that little heart button if you're live on Substack, or give us a follow if you're on one of the other platforms that you can watch this on later. And yeah, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for all the activity that went on today in the comment section. Sorry that we couldn't address all of it, but we always appreciate it. And as we've mentioned before, feel free to add comments after the live, so that people can see them after the show, and that also that we can further the discussion between different people and different viewpoints. So thank you so much, Andrew, as always. L'chaim.
And cheers. Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
Bye.